still essentially on pages. Essentially, we're finishing off page Zayin.
Someone's coming in.
Okay, we ready? Alright, so we'll go slightly back so that we now get into it in full force. 3 lines from the bottom on page 9. So we're talking about the fact that there is koiches that are klulim in the nefesh. Koiches that are included in the nefesh. The principle that the koiches included in the nefesh, in contrast to what we said later on, that the nefesh noseh koiches, that the nefesh in itself bears koiches. When you say the nefesh bears koiches, it means that the nefesh is identified through its koiches. It may be nefesh noseh koiches. Like we gave various examples of this. Such as we said that, for example, that mitzad nefesh ha'adam, there is certain appropriate ways how you eat. Even though this is an external action, and on the action level there is also the principle of convenience and neatness and so forth. But then there is a nefesh element in itself, to the extent that we say that a person loses his human face if he eats in an appropriate way. This has nothing to do with comfort, nothing to do with experience. It has to do with the nefesh itself. This is nefesh noseh koiches. Then there is another level, a nefesh kollel koiches. When the nefesh noseh koiches, the koiches are part and parcel of the nefesh. They don't have their own identity, they don't have their own sense of value. Like we said, why should you eat it a certain way? Because that's a nefesh in you, not because of the koiches. Convenience is a different thing, but at etzem inyan, that's a nefesh in. Nefesh kollel koiches means that the nefesh is capable of doing various things that are not identified with the nefesh. They identify with the koiches. And the nefesh can relate to the koiches to accomplish the function of the koich. This is what nefesh kollel koiches. And this in that nefesh kollel koiches, here's the thing that we need to understand. At the time when the koich is being practiced, executed, we don't see nefesh element. We see the koich functioning. But we say, and as we're going to discuss it further, that even though this is exclusively a koich function, the nefesh is what provides the means by which the koyach functions. It is not a koyach acting independently. Now, what does it mean a koyach acting independently? In our world, this is something which has come very clear because this phenomenon is totally misinterpreted. From the koyach perspective, it would appear that the koyach functions just in response to a circumstance.
Certain what?
In response to a circumstance.
Response to a circumstance. It's not really a koyach. In a sense, there's no positive focus of the koyach. It's just inadvertent. So we say no, we mean a koyach that has a focus and intended for this action. This intended element in the koyach, this actually comes from the nefesh. The nefesh gives chayos into everything, including all the koyachs. This is the pshat, the nefesh kollel koyachs. The nefesh includes the Ayin that it can give chayos to specific actions. These koyachs are very specific. And they are rooted in the nefesh itself, as we're saying. When the action is taking place, it can be traced back and related. The nefesh is what gives it chayos. As we always mention, we should understand, a human being never acts robotically. He was trained to do something and he does it. An animal, yes, but not a human being. Therefore, the whole nefesh is engaged in every action. If it's engaged in every action, that means the nefesh can relate to this action. If it couldn't relate to the action, then it cannot be engaged. The nefesh can relate to an action. That means that this action can be traced back to the nefesh. There's a nefesh perspective for this action. Because we say the nefesh gives chayos, gives life. Life cannot be obtained by force. It's usurped. Relates to the source of Ayin again rotzen. And if I don't want, it's never going to happen. Again, as you see, even on this, everything we touch, we can elaborate further, but just for the purposes of this, it's sufficient.
This is all kollel koyachs.
Huh?
This is all what you just described is all kollel koyachs.
This is all the Ayin from kollel koyachs. Now, since that we're saying that this is something which the nefesh can relate to, which means that internal to the nefesh there is that element. The nefesh can relate to this function. What is the stage of this function of this koyach when it is within the nefesh itself? Is it a definitive presence, so to speak, that can be completely identified separate from the nefesh? There's a koyach, a definitive, a limited koyach that's contained in the nefesh. From the terminology, it would seem that we could say that nefesh kollel koyachs, there are embedded koyachs in the nefesh. So when you start elaborating this further and say, oh, there's some kind of a pouch in the nefesh with the koiches contained in it. But that's obviously not the case at all. Even in the nefesh, kollel koiches, there's only one true nefesh. There's no multiple parts of the nefesh. This one true nefesh can relate, is kollel koiches can relate to koiches. Can relate to specific actions.
This kollel here is a verb. It includes faculties.
Right. So now we're saying, okay. So we're reading against 3 lines from the bottom. Ma she'hanefesh kolleles b'toicho koiches. That level, that phenomena, the nefesh is kollel b'toicho, within itself. It's still nefesh, but within this nefesh there is the element of koiches. Ein ze atzmus nefesh. This is not the essence of the nefesh. So here we have the real challenge. This is not atzmus nefesh. Are there 2 nefeshes or 1 nefesh? There's only 1 nefesh. In the nefesh itself, and it remains in the nefesh a life-giving source. There is that which is not atzmah nefesh, and in that life-giving source, which is not atzmah nefesh, this is where the nefesh can relate to koiches and to focused actions. How is this to be understood? So we're going like this. Omnam, it should be understood that ha-koiches k'moi shehein klulim b'nefesh, that these koiches, k'moi means at the stage, in the manner, at the level where they are kollel b'nefesh, they are included and contained in the nefesh. Harei heim gamkein b'bchinas bli gvul. They're also gamkein refers to the Ayin, not only the koiches that the nefesh is noseh koiches, that the koiches are not defined as believable. The koiches, as they are included in the nefesh, kollel nefesh is also believable. Ariyam gankin believable. Believable. This is really very subtle, and I'd like that we should today go through this. Bligvul means it has no boundaries. It has no defining borders. Now we said many times, a koyach that does a specific and identified function has to be focused to accomplish this function. If a person walks and he kicks a rock, an animal walks and kicks a rock, and the rock flies, this is not to be defined as a koyach of throwing a rock. Why? Because the Beis is just walking. One step is exactly identical as the other. The step that kicked the rock and the step that didn't kick the rock are identical. So it's not doing a particular action. The behemoth is doing its behemoth thing, period. Therefore, this is cannot be interpreted as a koyach. The similar thing, if we translate it in a human being, Any action that is done inadvertently, without engaging, is not a koyach, a specific koyach. He's saying that example, okay. We're talking about the seichel and midas. Is it possible to understand something inadvertently? I saw you understand it. Oh yeah, I understand. It doesn't work like that.
But by the example from the stone, understanding it's not possible only if you engage it. But the stone can fly while you engage it, while you don't engage it.
That's why we pointed out. A stone, an action of throwing a stone is only when you throw the stone to a target. If the stone is flying and without in a non-directional, it's not a flight.
It's also not happening.
Let's put it even clearer. We are talking as we're going through here. We are going through several times, so we know that there is the goof, and then the koches nefesh, and the goof provides the ability for the koches nefesh to be slavish in the goof. The ruchnis should be gashmis, and the gashmis should be ruchnis. When a behemoth walks and it kicks a rock, a stone, and stone flies, this action is attributed to the nefesh on behemoth or to the foot of the behemoth. To the foot. The first definition of a koyach is if it can be attributed to the nefesh. This is koyach.
At the beginning we said every human action or faculty is rooted in the nefesh. Is this, what we're saying right now, is this to just emphasize that, or is this a new point, this not being inadvertent? Is this something new that we've said?
No, this is the definition of a koyach.
Right, so we're emphasizing what we said earlier, that every human action is associated with nefesh.
If it is considered a human action.
Yeah.
An action that happens inadvertently is not attributed to the person.
Right. Ultimately,
Shabbos, the Torah asks us to do malacha. And the Torah says, malachas machshavos osra Torah.
The work of thought is also.
No, a thought that has the malacha that intended, that had the thought behind it.
But inadvertent.
The inadvertent action is not an action.
Even though if you knock something over in your sleep, you still hold the person responsible.
That's because he should have been. He should have he should have understood. I mean, he lies down to sleep, and he's lying in a place where there is crystal dishes right next to his feet. He should be considered. Hey, what will happen if I turn over and I hit the crystals?
Mm-hmm.
If he lying down, there was no crystals there, and you put the crystals after he's sleeping, he's not liable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Kind of liable. For Shabbos, it's not an intentional malacha, you're not even liable like carbon. If on Shabbos you do a malacha without intention, you're not even chayav a carbon.
Yeah, of course not. Shabbos also tell you. Shabbos there is even more. The malacha has to be done in a proper way, because if you do the malacha klachar yad, it's also important. That's even a lesser thing. Okay. Now we're coming back to the inyan from the koiches. The koiches k'moi shehen klulim benefesh, in the stage as they are contained in the nefesh. Areihem gam kein bebchinas b'ligvul. There, they're also bebchinas b'ligvul. What is the necessity? What is the implication of these words? Because if they were gvul within the nefesh, then we have the only way we can be mitzayah this. The only way we can project this is that there is a pouch that contains koiches. Because the nefesh itself is bli gvul. Therefore, if we have gvulim within the nefesh, it has to, and the nefesh contains, the nefesh relates to it. That means that the nefesh is carrying this burden in a pouch. Says no, they are also bli gvul, and this is why they're able. The nefesh is able to relate to them and contain these koiches.
Beligvil means, let's say the koich of the hand. What's beligvil? In this particular koich is beligvil. What? Because it's a certain koich, so automatically it has a beligvil. So,
No. Gvul, I said, gvul does not mean limit; it means definition.
it has a definition. It has a definition.
Not as it's, the koyach per se has a definition, but not at the stage where it's contained in the nefesh. This is one of the most, so far, very difficult even to understand, to define and to relate to it. We are saying there's a difference between nefesh noseh koiches and nefesh kollel koiches. Nefesh noseh koiches, there is only nefesh, there is no koiches. And the koiches is all representative of nefesh. It's all ha'or of the nefesh. Nefesh kollel koiches, each koyach has a significance of its own. It's not representing the nefesh. Let's take these koiches, as I said before, on the other end, on the functional end. So we gave an example. If a person eats in an appropriate way, he's saying it's not that he's not eating in a proper way, it's inconvenient. He's just not human. Which means it's reflective of nefesh. Although it is also true that it's not convenient. But that's on a lower level. That's when it becomes a koyach independent of nefesh. But in terms of nefesh, nice koyach, it means it represents the nefesh. When a person writes, there's no way that he can write if he were not a living person. We didn't have a nefesh giving him chayas. Nevertheless, it is also correct to say that it is koyach hatnuah. He is writing. It's not the nefesh writing. It's the koyach hatnuah that's established in the hand and identified with the seichel. This is the koyach that writes. It's not the nefesh activity. It's a koyach activity. Now, this koyach activity, at the same time, we're saying that it is not a robotic action. The nefesh can relate to it. How can the nefesh relate to it? Now, this principle, this phenomenon of writing, the nefesh internal to the nefesh can relate to this function without identifying with it, without having that particular function and thus defined level.
Can we say the noseh koiches is the rotz b'terutzim, and the kollel koiches is like the lower level is the koich already?
Noseh koiches is also the koich. Because as we said, if the action is done inappropriate for the nefesh, you're identifying the nefesh with it. Yeah, what more?
We said that every action has to have an intent. This is what. This is this
That
the
is
Rutzen?
an action of a koyach.
The intent is the Rutzen, no?
Yes. How does a nefesh get to intent to do an action? To write, to speak, to think. Because the nefesh can relate to these koyches. These koyches are nichlal in the nefesh.
But who is intending? Not the koyach. The nefesh is intending. It's like we're saying, it's not the feet which kicked it. It's the nefesh. So it's
No. The koyach has a function. The nefesh enables the koyach to do this function. The intent is not really that it is not inadvertent. I want it to happen, but I have to focus in on the action. I have to focus in on the action and do it precisely according to the demands and the possibilities of this action. I said throwing a ball to a target. To intend to throw is one thing, but to focus in to throw it to a target, that's a koyach. That's specifically a koyach. This koyach is when the nefesh is we're going to learn, the nefesh is nisamtzim. The whole nefesh is nisamtzim. And focused into that particular action. Because the nefesh is nisamtzim. Why is the nefesh nisamtzim? Because the nefesh can relate to this action, to this koyach. This is the nefesh is kollel koyches.
Before the Ratzon actually comes in after this.
Baruch Hashem, you're used to here to have an absolute clarity, and even though it's very difficult, but we'll try. Lost my train of thought. Okay. The nefesh is bli gvul, is unburdened, unbridled. It knows everything due to its own truth. It's free, completely free. Now we say the nefesh is kollel koyches. Which means on the global aspect of the nefesh, on the general and the global aspect of the nefesh, not in specific koyches, in the global aspect of the nefesh. Even though the nefesh is, in essence, the AyinBase nefesh is absolutely free. It relates to everything via its own truth, 100% truth. It nevertheless incorporates the ability to take direction. the ability to take direction, this is already mitzamt in the nefesh. Which means it's not functioning on its level. Okay? This is what you should do. Or I'm going to tell you what to do.
It's like going out from itself.
What?
Is it like this, like someone going out from himself?
It would seem that way.
Yeah.
So we say, no. The nefesh kollel koiches. The nefesh includes that ability, that element. I must say the following, and things will fall into place. I already said it in the very first time we learned.
Because of its infinite ability. Because of its infinite ability, the nefesh included those koiches.
Wow, how is that? If it's infinite, it doesn't have. Infinite does not have finites. We're jumping the gun, but I said you're not going to get out of it without understanding this. The nefesh is a godly presence. In this phenomenon that it's a godly presence, this godly presence has been imbued and given to the nefesh. He actually bestowed his presence into the nefesh. The nefesh, therefore, has infinite capacity, a godly capacity. From that perspective, you would think that the nefesh can function now independently of its source. It has a godly quality. So we say no. While there is the nefesh itself, there is also the source from which it comes. This source has, yes, made the nefesh, but this source has defined a purpose for the nefesh. No matter how great that purpose, it is beyond the nefesh itself. It is something which is in effect setting the nefesh on a path. This inyan, that the nefesh has its own koiches, and included in this inyan that the nefesh has its own koiches is the inyan that is also a creation and a gift from God, is all incorporated in the definition of nefesh. Definition of nefesh. So while the nefesh really is all capable, not only capable is bli gvul, this bli gvul has a function. A function would seem to be reducing its bli gvul quality. So we say no, it doesn't reduce it, because this function comes to it from a higher source, from the source of the Creator. Did I help you, or did I make it more difficult? Huh?
Is that the end?
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like you're only halfway through. Are you sure that's the end?
We're always halfway through. Halfway there is great.
As a last point, you may think that this purpose reduces the soul's infinite quality, but no.
This purpose does not reduce the infinity. It gives the soul a greater perspective, a greater dimension. But it's actually representative of its creator.
This is the answer to why it's not in a package.
Right.
Because it's not coming from it. It's coming from something.
This is how koiches gvulim are beli gvul in the nefesh itself, and they contain in the nefesh. And the nefesh relates to it. You know the story of the Rebbe. He was on a mission from the Friedrich Rebbe to Reb Chaim Oizer. And he came to Reb Chaim Oizer to his medrash in the yeshiva. And he asked, I'd like to go and see Reb Chaim Oizer. I'd like to go and see the Reb Chaim Oizer. I'd like to. So they went in and they asked him, and I said he has to wait. He has to wait a little bit. In the meantime, he sat down on the bench in the yeshiva along with all the bochim. And the bochim in the yeshiva, they knew this is about the Babisher Rebbe's Ayin. Oh, let's see what kind of Ayin that Babisher Rebbe had gotten. How lucky he is, or how not lucky he is. Well, how is he compared to AyinBase's yeshiva? They were big Lomdim, so they started asking the Rebbe questions in learning. It's a very common procedure that yeshiva bochum immediately they start engaging yourself in learning. And the Rebbe, maybe I have to think about it. No, nothing. There's nothing coming forth. Nothing coming forth. Finally, AyinBase was available, and the Rebbe was called in, and he went into AyinBase, and apparently AyinBase was already introduced to the Rebbe. I told him, the Babisher was aiding, but he doesn't seem to know very much. AyinBase had his talk with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe fulfilled his mission, his shlichus from Friedrich Rebbe. Then the Rebbe came out. He sat down on the bench again, and then he said, "Okay, let's engage. Let's talk in learning." And they started asking him all the questions that they asked. A whole new world opened up. Then I don't know exactly how it happened that AyinBase talked to him. AyinBase asked him, "Why did you do that? You made such a negative impression of the Rebbe's Ayin." So he said, when I first came in, I was a shliach for Rebbe. A shliach for Rebbe, I don't exist. I don't know anything until I fulfill the shlichus. So I'd like we should focus in and understand this. The Rebbe was in a shlichus from Friedrich Rebbe, and that precluded his personal activity, his personal understanding, his seichel, midas, everything. Did this limit him, or did this broaden him, make him greater? Did it make him smaller or greater?
Greater.
Did everybody understand that? Hello?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. I'd like everybody to understand this.
So did the shlichus limit him?
Huh?
To the fact that he was on the shlichus?
The fact that he could not function on his own. He was limited by the shlichus. He only focus on the shlichus, period. He can't go back to his own seichel, his own midas, his own knowledge. I don't exist.
It made him greater because he was connected to the Rebbe, and he was connected to the Rebbe's.
He was in a different plane, a different plateau. This is reminiscent to the principle of noseh and nefesh we always talk about. Noseh, which means that you're bypassing your whole seichel, all your koiches. Is that limited? That makes you smaller or bigger? You are then at the master's level, not only as a recipient of his teaching. The nefesh kollel koiches represents this phenomenon. And the koiches then, the nefesh, mekmeshe heklunim benefesh, hengankim bebchilis b'gvul. They are in the category of b'gvul. Ve'einu b'mtzias koiches klal. They're not in the presence of koiches at all. There are no identifiable presences. There is no pouch for these koiches.
What means pouch?
A bag. A bag. Did you ever see a kangaroo? Come on, you guys have to go to Australia.
Why then, when we use the example of a person not eating in an appropriate way, and then you say, besides the convenience aspect, you look at him and you say he's not eating like a person, which means it's bringing with it an aspect of nefesh which transcends the kollel. If the kollel is at the state of kollel the nefesh are also in a state of bleak bul, and the nefesh at that point is equally in a state of bleak bul, why then do we have to look for a higher level of noseh to explain why the nefesh is being brought along? The way you say he's not eating like a human being, so therefore there must be even higher level. We're saying noseh, but it seems like the level of nefesh of kollel the nefesh is sufficient that when a person doesn't act in accordance with a human being, you would say it's that level. Makes sense what I'm saying? It's not.
You didn't say it in a clear way, but I know what you're trying to say. The nefesh kollel koiches is not a reflection of the nefesh. It's an independent ability. It's not a reflection of the nefesh. Koiches and nefesh, noseh koiches is a reflection of the nefesh itself. Kollel koiches is not a reflection of the nefesh.
But why not? Because at that level, the nefesh is also the koiches are bleak bul, and the nefesh is also bleak bul at that point. There's no if the koiches were, as we said, in a pouch, so then I would understand that at that level, in order to get back to the real atzmah of a human being, you'd have to go to a higher level. Then the nefesh can relate to
because
a pouch.
The fact that the nefesh is kollel koiches, even though the koiches are bleak bul, is not due to what the nefesh is. What then is it due to? It's due to the mission of the nefesh. To which a nefesh is bottled. As we said, this actually elevates a nefesh, like in the story of the Rebbe. But it's not contained within that element itself.
In that story, the Frierdiker Rebbe would be nefesh, and
No, previous Rebbe would be the source of the nefesh. The nefesh isn't the Rebbe. The Rebbe who was doing the mission.
we want to explain that the kollel are bli gvul, even though they are kollel of the nefesh. So I was trying to understand that when the Rebbe was sent down on the shlichus, I thought this was an example of the kollel being bli gvul within the nefesh itself.
This gives us an example, an understanding. What does it mean that there are koiches within the nefesh that are not part of the nefesh? We gave a very mundane illustration of this concept. Anybody recall? That to throw a ball into a target has no significance in itself, but when you are in a team, in a competitive sports, you're part of a team, and you're acting in the broader world. It is not a shleimus. When a shleimus, it's not a meaningful development to train your hand to be able to throw a ball in a target, just throwing in a target. It's to be part of a bigger scheme. In order to be part of being a bigger scheme, you have to relate to that bigger scheme. To speak in American lingo, you have to become a teammate. Do you understand? Everybody knows that, right? Everybody played baseball at some point in time. If you grew up, you had to play baseball. Right, Yitzchak? Oh, Yitzchak. Only us Europeans don't know what it is.
Yeah, I didn't grow up in baseball, but I grew up with sports
Football.
where throwing an object, the goal was to throw it as far as possible.
As far as possible. Why?
Is that similar
It's,
to a target?
it's also part of the bigger scheme.
It's the same idea as the target.
The main thing is, it's part of a bigger scheme, or is it just for your own sake?
Okay, it's part of it.
Part of the bigger scheme. In this respect, it's kollel. It includes there, even though it's not the nefesh itself. The nefesh, independent of the bigger skill, has no relationship to this. So as we shall see, eventually, hopefully, in Yitzhak we'll get there. The nefesh, noseh koiches, this is the nefesh, the real nefesh. Kollel koiches is even greater than nefesh. Okay. Now, the way the koiches and kollel, that's what it says. The way the koiches and kollel, they are also the b'chinas b'likvul. Again, the nefesh relates to them because the nefesh has this bigger element. We have these mishonim galore. So you have a host and a guest. You're a member. You come to a chasana and you're an invited guest. You're an invited guest. That that in a certain sense, in a certain way, it kind of puts a burden, and you have to act as a guest, you have to be in the right place, and you have to behave amongst other people. But that makes you bigger, not smaller.
Bring a gift.
Bring a gift, right? Write a check. Cover the check. That makes you bigger, not smaller. And it's part of your real being. It's an interesting thing. A person who cannot, Ahmad cannot relate to company, to being a guest at a wedding. Right? It's not, there's something missing. Although that itself is bigger than the individual person. This is nefesh kollel koiches. And the koiches there, that was, okay, now that we've said that, we can hopefully sail. The koiches as they are kollel benefesh. Not noseh kollel benefesh. Harehem gan kim bechinas v'likvul. There's bechinas v'likvul. This phenomena that nefesh is able to have koiches, the koiches are v'likvul. Ve'enam b'metzias koiches klal. They're not in the metzias of koiches. Ki odua, as is known, the koyach ha-seichel ha-hiyuli ho-atzmi. The koyach of seichel. Okay, so let's focus on the koyach ha-seichel. A person, as a human being, as we always explain, as a human being, he is born a human being. He doesn't become a human being by training. Like the Pasuk says, a human being is born, is created to begin with the task of ruling the world. At that stage, he has all the qualities, all the capabilities of achieving his task. In what form are these qualities contained in the person at birth? A healthy person, a healthy baby, he has all these qualities and potential, and you can develop it. As in those girls, normally it will develop automatically, almost. Given the opportunity, given the circumstance, he will definitely develop. Where is it drawn from? The koyach ha-hiyuli. And this koyach ha-hiyuli is called the hiyuli ho-atzmi. What does ho-atzmi mean? It is there not because it was put there, identified. It is there by virtue of what the human being is. From that perspective, what is the human being? Okay, here's the challenge. At that perspective, the human being is not what he is able to do. At that perspective, the human being is what he is intended for. Why is he here in the first place? That's the real definition of the human being. What's he doing here? This is the etzem. Please understand that. Etzem, the term etzem, that level of reality that's called etzem, does not exist within the world, the context itself. Because the whole world is not an etzem. If you walk and you hit the table and it hurts you, that's not an etzem, That's a result of an action.
But on the sun we're saying that
Huh?
on the sun we're saying that sun is a etzem behiri.
That's right. Yes, this is
Not
that's
part
a
of the world.
huh?
The sun is not part of the world.
No, it's not a worldly perspective. No scientist will say that the sun is an atzmah.
Why not? Why does it
To
Because-
remain on this call, press 1.
But in order to see the atzmi element, you have to be an atzmi yourself. And if you don't engage, everybody has a nefesh. If you don't engage your atzmis, and you submit yourself to the worldliness, you're never going to get it.
It was said before that the world is
Huh?
in the world there's no etzem. Just trying to understand what does it mean.
It means that
Only
it means that everything you're going to do within the worldly context, you have an ulterior motive why you're doing it.
What means etzem?
As it means there's an essential truth in this without any. This itself is true for its own, contained within its own. I remember I was still a bocher in yeshiva. Somebody who went away from the music or whatever it is, became a whole scholar. He says, psychologists have now discovered that even the love of a mother to a child, to a baby, is also not the etzem. There's an ulterior motive in this. It's all selfish. The mother's love for a baby is selfish. Can you imagine that? To him, this was a victory. Conferred his stupidity.
It was a victory because it reduces everything to worldly orientation.
Yeah.
So he was.
He was still a bacher?
No, he was a bocher. Yeah, but he was a bocher pest. He was a divorced bocher. But I was a bocher in yeshiva.
You can see why.
Well, he had a difficult life. I'm not judging him. Just saying, but he was a scholar, and he came back to me. Abba, you should come in this year and talk to me a lot. Abba, they discovered. Can you imagine what a discovery this is? Okay. When b'mtzias koiches klal, they are not b'mtzias koiches. There's an inherent reality in the person that enables him to have these koiches. Ukiyodua as is known. Okay, I'm going back. The koich hasechel ha'hiyuli ho'atzmi. The koich hasechel ho'atzmi. The essential aim of koich is every human being, as we said, the human being lying in the gutter. And he says, leave me alone, I'm happy. We don't believe him. You see, he's lying through his teeth. Why? Because he has an atzmi. You can't lose atzmi. HaKollel be-atzmah nefesh, that is included in the etzem of the nefesh. Einoi b'bchinas sichli klal. That koyach hayuli is not b'bchinas sichli, is not to be, does not have a definable bechina that's called sichli. Klal uklal. We said the bechina sichli. We said like this. Learning in the Frias Hemshah. We said in Atzmus there is no oir. In the nefesh there is oir. In the sun there is oir. But in Atzmus there is no oir. Remember that? We spent a lot of time on this. And we said, why is there no oir in Atzmus? In nefesh there is oir, and in sun there is no oir. The answer is, the nefesh there is oir because the nefesh has an inherent definition what it is. It's a chai. That's etzem chai. But it's chai. The sun is bright, it is etzem behiri, but it has a definition. Atzmus has no definition. Therefore there's no oir. Etzem ha-nefesh at this level, in terms of his koiches, is atzmi. And therefore, there are no koiches. The koiches within that are undefined, are not identified with any content. What is it? What does it stand for? It means it's koich ha-seichel, but it's not sichli.
That's the Yuli, right?
Koich ha-seichel is not sichli. Okay, we spent so much time on this. Let me bring out the following point. I'm not going to go through the whole because everybody is in this. But this means is this, that ultimately when the seichel is developed, and we are using the seichel, this koyach hayuli of seichel substantiates it. It itself is not sichli, but substantiates it. Good. Yeah, that's good. That's right.
Again, koyach ha-seichel substantiates.
This koyach hayuli substantiates the function of seichel. And again, in our society we have to elaborate on this. And the reason we have to elaborate on it is because in our training in the secular world, we have lost the sense of what seichel is. 1 on 1 is 2, that's seichel, because we're talking about 2 ones. That's not seichel. It's identifying fact. Seichel means something which is real because of your seichel. But only you can know it and the animal cannot know it. Because you have a nefesh ha-sichlis.
The koyach ha-seichel is beyond, it's not seichel, it's beyond definition. Why do what are we calling it a koyach for? How are we calling it but in other words, this is like something that's only true of the Eibishter, so to speak. It's beyond all definitions.
This is the Eibishter in you.
Yeah, here we're calling it a specific. In other words, is there a koyach or do all the koyachas exist on a hiyuli level?
Yes.
They are, because they're basically in the Eibishter's realm. The koyachas kollel noseh koyachas, they would not. They at that point there is a definition, or no? In other words, kollel koyachas truly are beyond definition, all definition. But noseh koyachas, it's more like the etzem of the nefesh giving life to the.
Noseh koyachas is clearly bligvul in itself, because it's a ha'or of the nefesh. Noseh koyachas is wherever they go, you only see nefesh, you don't see koyachas. Like we said, a ha'ora from an etzem is revealed ba'oifun shel ha'etzem, in our moshel of the sun. Daylight is not light. That makes you able to see. Daylight is the reality of light, like it is in the sun. Even though it's only a ha'or of it. It's a hespashtus. But it transforms the mitzvahs of the world. That's how ha'ora of an etzem functions.
Kollel, you can't say ha'ora because there is no ha'ora from there's like we learned in the last Hamshah. There's no ha'ora of the Eibishter. There's no aura in the is that the reason why we can't call it a ha'ora?
No. The reason we can't call it ha'ora is because the koyachas do function in a very finite and definitive manner. The ha'ora would mean, if we're talking about, let's say, the sun is focused on making you able to see this cotton. That would be ha'ora.
Daylight's not a ha'ara?
No. There are two, absolutely, we spoke about it, two aspects in daylight. Yes, indeed, you can see across the stream, but that's not identified daylight in its true meaning. Because if the function of the daylight that you can see across the street, if you have a bright light, you can also see across the street. Do you call that daylight?
Well, the lower level of light from the sun is not a ha'ara, but the daylight aspect is a ha'ara. Daylight, the fact that it transforms the world to a bright world, that we say is a ha'ara.
It's a ha'ara of the etzem.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a ha'ara of the etzem. That's why it's like the etzem. You can't say what's daylight. It enables you to see across the street. That's a misrepresentation. You know, like everything that we touch can go. I think it's, yes, everyone.
No.
Go to town, okay, let's continue on the top line just to get to the next stage of the reading. One has to come back again. V'chein b'shari ha'koiches, just like in koich ha'seichel, the way it is in the nefesh, kollel b'nefesh, it is bli gvul. It's only what's called seichel, the hiyuli of the seichel. The hiyuli of the seichel. The same true in the other koiches. However, only the ha'or of this koiches that comes to be slavish beibore haguf. This is the ha'or of the koiches, not the ha'or of the nefesh. The ha'or of this potential koiches is drawn to be mislabish beibore haguf. The koiches are the nefesh, but the nefesh noseh koiches are not mislabish beibore haguf. They come to the person, the bore haguf, along with the whole nefesh. But these koiches are called nefesh. The ha'or of these koiches is mislavish beibore haguf. What this means, mislavish beibore haguf. So the way it is in the brain, it's hard for us to focus and to identify with. But the koyach hayad, the koyach hatnuah should be yad. The hand has chayas. It's a living hand, with and without the koyach. That chayas comes from the nefesh. Everything comes from nefesh, but that chayas is identified with nefesh. It's a living body. Then there is the koyach hatnuah. That's in the koyach hatnuah should be yad. As we spoke many times, the koyach hatnuah in the hand is mechaya the hand even when you're not actively using it. In a certain sense, it is true to say the following. Just as we say, machshava mishetetus tomit, it's flurry all the time. The koyach hatnuah in the hand is constantly misnaneya. You don't have to go and wake up your hand. Hey hand, I want to write. It's moving. It's in a constant state of activity. This is the ha'ara of the koyach that's mislabish in the Borei Haguf. It is mislabish in the Borei Haguf because that gives a sense of life to the Eiver. That's what I'm saying. If a person has a shalom as in a state where he is not able to move his arm, it's paralyzed. That's what it's. It's still alive though. The hand is lacking full life. It's alive. Is that lack of full life identified only when he needs to do something, or is identified constantly all the time? All the time. Now, with the koyach hayad is identifiable and learned all the time. You can instantaneously see this hand has a koyach hayad and this hand does not. No matter what the position it is. This is the koyach that mislabish is mamish mislabish b'Borei Haguf. Harei ze bo b'bchinas tzimtzum. This comes in the tzimtzum. This is a definitive koyach that's mechaya the hand at the hand level, and therefore it comes b'chinas tzimtzum, which means it's a specific koyach, the koyach hatnuah. And it's on the ready to move all the time. She'anefesh mitzamtzim es atzmah, which means that nefesh is mitzamtzim itself. Bevchina bigdei. Why is it mitzamtzim itself? Bigdei, in order. Leislabish be'Borei Haguf. In order to be mislabish in the Borei Haguf. These are short words of extreme importance. This tzimtzum is not an inadvertent tzimtzum, it's a focused tzimtzum. Because the nefesh relates to the koiches. Because the koiches is something that the nefesh is kollel. The nefesh, it comes to the goof, it gives chayes to the goof, it's not satisfied. It wants the goof to be active. Mislabish be'Borei Haguf. Liya is misamtim itself bigdei lislabish be'Borei Haguf. In order to be mislabish and Liya is b'bchinas chayes pnimi. To be mislabish in Borei Haguf, not just to make the goof alive so that it won't rot away, but it be a chayes pnimi. A chayes with a meaning, with a function.
It watches out.
What?
So it sort of watches out that it's been done. The kochot nimim. It watches out. It controls it in a way, guards it.
I'm not trying to say what's in your mind.
Okay, maybe you should.
Chayes pnimi means that it's mislabish in the goof, in the hand, not just so that the hand wouldn't die,
Right.
but that the hand would fulfill its purpose.
It gives its koiches, so
that the hand will fulfill its purpose.
right.
That's
Okay.
And as a result of that, because of this tzimtzum, these koiches come b'hagbola. Then in the nefesh they bligvu. But they are koiches, and as a result of him boim b'hagbola, the koiches come out and the form of Hagbol add to the point shehein be'erech, that they are within proximity of b'chinas ruchnis shebe'ivorim. They are in proximity to the ruchnis of the ivorim. What is the ruchnis of the ivorim? The ruchnis of the ivorim is the ability of the ivorim to involve in a task, to do something. The Eiver on its own is the Gashmi that it has no. The Gashmi would be just as satisfied just to sit put. The Ruchnis in the Eiver is that which demands activity. Liyas nitvos bahem, so that the koyach nefesh, is nitfas, is actually grasped with pnimius in the evorim, in the ruchnis shebevorim. To the point where the labor, you could say, Eber comes to life, even though it was alive before. It's a different life. This is a chayas pnimi, and this is a chayas makifi. The ruchnis in the ivorim is the sense in the Eber that I'm not just a piece of meat, flesh, but I have a certain ability to accomplish something.
That's not in the brain, that's in the Eber itself.
That's in the Eber itself. That's what the Ruchnis should be, because the Eber is fit for this function.
Eber has a sense of a mission.
Why is your hand designed with such complexity? You know how complex the wrist is? You know what it consists of? Why can't it be just a bone like this? This is it for this morning. Pretty late, I overstayed, but I hope that it's okay. Wow.